Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban has urged for an anti-Ukrainian bloc in the European Union to block support for Ukraine and any sanctions on Russia. Viktor Orban is seeking to unite with the authorities of Slovakia and the Czech Republic to show Brussels that not everyone in Europe supports Ukraine. You know, Orban has never shown so clearly who he actually works for and who his real employer is. As an argument, Orban stated that he is very afraid of a war with Russia. According to him, the confiscation of Russia's frozen assets in favor of Ukraine could lead to a Russian-European conflict, or even a major war between Europe and Russia. He claims that Putin will not tolerate the confiscation of his assets and will definitely attack. Orban is already running around Brussels with calls, just like him, to promote the Russian agenda. Viktor Orban also said the Ukraine-Russia peace agreement should be signed specifically in Budapest, mockingly suggesting there was already a Budapest memorandum signed in history. And at the same time, Viktor Orban is begging Trump for concessions after the United States imposed sanctions against Russia's oil giants, which could stop the flow of Russian oil to Hungary. My name is Alexei Pichi, let's discuss this topic together. But before we start this episode, I ask you to subscribe to this YouTube channel, give it a like, and leave your comments under this episode. This helps promote the video on YouTube. Subscribe to my Telegram channel, Pichi News. The link is in the description of this video. There we publish breaking news as it comes in. If you want to support the work of this YouTube channel, you can do so with any donation, sponsorship, or paid subscription. Use the links and details in the video description to do all this. It states, support the channel Alexei Pichi. Choose any option that's convenient for you. I will be grateful for your support. So, Viktor Orban, the Prime Minister of Hungary, stated today that Budapest is seeking to unite with the Czech Republic and Slovakia to create an informal anti-Ukrainian alliance within the European Union. Although the political director, Prime Minister Balázs Orban of Hungary, was the first to express this anti-Ukrainian idea. He has the same last name. And according to him, Prime Minister Viktor Orban wants to coordinate actions with the Czech politician Andrej Babiš, whose Action of Dissatisfied Citizens Party won the parliamentary elections, as well as with the Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico. The idea is to coordinate positions before European Union summits and to hold preliminary meetings of leaders with only one goal: how to disrupt support for Ukraine and sanctions against Russia. Well, in other words, Orban and his team aren't even hiding anymore, that they're just blatantly following the Kremlin's agenda. And although the creation of such a political alliance remains just an idea for now, analysts note that its emergence could seriously complicate the European Union's joint efforts to provide military and financial support to Ukraine. And this Balázs Orban, Viktor Orban's political director, confirmed that such a format is already being discussed. Next is his quote. I think this will happen and will become more and more noticeable. He also recalled the experience of the Visegrad Four. Let me remind you, the Visegrad Four included Hungary, the Czech Republic, Slovakia, and Poland. And in the past, the Visegrad Four acted as a united front against Brussels' migration policy. And now they want to repeat this experience in their confrontation with Ukraine. But here, let me make a remark right away. Despite Budapest's ambitions, Poland is unlikely to join the new alliance because the current Prime Minister, Donald Tusk, is a consistent supporter of Ukraine. But Robert Fico from Slovakia and Andrej Babiš from the Czech Republic share the position of the Hungarian leader. They advocate for dialogue with Moscow instead of economic pressure on the Kremlin. Babiš has repeatedly criticized European aid to Ukraine. Well, the Czech Foreign Minister Jan Lipavsky called him Orban's puppet in the upcoming negotiations at the European Union Council. However, there is no talk of a formal alliance yet. Fico has not signed any agreements with Orban. Well, and Babiš hasn't even formed a government yet that could join any such initiative. Well, besides, the president of the Czech Republic, Petr Pavel, is unlikely to allow such a scenario, but Orban doesn't give up. Let me briefly review the timeline for you. On October 10, the Prime Minister of Hungary made another provocative statement, accusing Ukrainian intelligence of spying on Hungarian citizens and infiltrating the opposition party TISA, which he called pro-Ukrainian. This is a common, very cheap, very simple distraction tactic. Orban claimed that, supposedly, Ukrainian special services almost created this TISA party in Hungary and now control it to fight against Viktor Orban. But interestingly, All this happened against the backdrop of an investigation being published, according to which the Hungarian authorities, led by Viktor Orban, had been spying on European Union structures for several years and trying to recruit European officials for their own interests. Viktor Orban says Ukrainian intelligence is watching, spying, and has infiltrated the party. Well, you get it, right? At the same time, Viktor Orban initiated a petition in Hungary against the defense plan that the leaders of the European Union countries are discussing. Next, I'll quote Orban. Europe is rapidly approaching war, and Brussels wants Ukrainians to keep fighting until Russia is exhausted. A hot autumn awaits us. Europe pays, Ukrainians fight, and Russia will be exhausted. And today the Hungarian Prime Minister has become active again. Viktor Orban stated that the confiscation of Russia's frozen assets in Europe could lead to a Russian-European conflict, or not just a conflict, but even a war. Here's a quote from Viktor Orban. There's a new miracle weapon from Brussels. To seize and use the currency reserves of the Russian Federation in Europe, this is a Russian-European conflict. It could even be a prelude to a major war. The only way to prevent escalation is direct Russian-European negotiations. We insisted on this at meetings over the past few days, and we will continue to do so. Orban noted that last Thursday and Friday he met with a number of European leaders and supposedly saw with his own eyes that today all European leaders except for himself, Fico and Babis are thinking about war and preparing for war. But Russia supposedly does not want a war with Europe. And then there's another quote from Orban. Europe is running out of strength and money. The main question is who will fund Ukraine's recovery after the war? Who has those resources? What city? Which country's people? Are European Union countries prepared to send billions of euros to Ukraine which can't support itself? Well, here's a little lyrical digression. Let me remind Viktor Orban that in fact his regime has been living off subsidies from Brussels for many years. So it turns out that, what does it turn out to be? It turns out that Viktor Orban's regime is not able to support itself. How can that be? Then why all these attacks on Ukraine? And also, Orban said that a peace agreement between Russia and Ukraine will, he's sure, be signed in Budapest. And he also says if Europeans follow his example and crawl on their knees to the Kremlin to pay their respects, then the war will end in 2 to 3 days. He says it's easy. You just have to talk to the Russians. The Prime Minister of Hungary noted that the Budapest Peace Summit will still take place. And this can be called a fact, but he couldn't say exactly when. He says, well, Trump and Putin will definitely meet in Budapest. In an interview during his visit to the Vatican, Orban recalled the peace summit in Sharm el-Sheikh on the Gaza Strip. Quote, the parties involved, including the Americans, negotiated for a long time, and then on Saturday they said the signing would take place on Monday. That's how you should think about it. So here peace could be established and an agreement signed in 2 to 3 days. I remember Viktor Orban saying that peace between Russia and Ukraine requires external involvement. According to him, someone has to negotiate peace with the Russians, and that someone is either the United States or Europe. Quote, but Europe does not want to negotiate with Russia, which is a catastrophic mistake. The Americans are negotiating, and they will decide the future of Ukraine and issues of European security in an agreement with the Russians. And we, Europeans, are behaving as if we like it. And we will applaud. And so, according to the Hungarian Prime Minister, European leaders should have made direct contact with Russia, started negotiations, and reached a Russian-European agreement on the European security system, as well as on the future of Ukraine. Well, as I always say, I'm agnostic, but thank God that people like Viktor Orban are in the minority in Europe. I'll leave it at that. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments below this episode. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like. That's it for now. Take care. Goodbye.